Hello.
You aren't a potato.
Hi, it's Alina.
Hey, Uncle Craig.
Buddy, it's so good to see you.
I tricked you.
Hi. Right.
Hey, man. You digging me?
I'm Craig Wallace, and I am an actor here in DC.
My name is Ivania Stack, and I am a costume designer.
My name is Matt Nielson. I am a sound designer and composer for theater and film and TV.
My name is Harold Burgess. I am a theatrical lighting designer.
I'm Nicole A. I'm the Associate Artistic Director here at Roundhouse Theater.
I'm Ryan Rilette. I'm the Artistic Director of Roundhouse Theater, and I am the producer and one of the directors of Homebound.
When we shut down, Ryan Rilette, the Artistic Director, emailed and said, I have this idea.
We have all these contracts out. We have all these artists who are under contract. And unlike me, they don't get paid when the work doesn't happen. Like, I have to keep making work. I have to come here every day and figure out some way to keep the doors open and keep the staff paid and keep us functioning. But if you're an artist, if you're a freelance artist, if you've, maybe landed a gig a year ago and you've built your entire budget on having that gig, losing that gig or losing 5 gigs, or 6 gigs all back to back is literally life-threatening. It's an existential problem.
We started looking at what other theaters were doing, how people were releasing content. We have a huge education department that also had to quickly figure out, were we still going to do classes online? What happened to all the school programs that we were doing? What's going to happen to summer camp? There were so many questions to answer. But we started talking about how we could do something that would engage local artists in an interesting way.
And so, early on, the first thought was, two big things. How do we get people back to work? We also wanted to be able to respond to this moment artistically.
Lots of emails back and forth. How many writers, how many actors, what would it look like? And then, I don't remember the finer details, but at some point we landed on this idea of this 10-episode series that rather than do old plays or try and do a play that was written that already existed, to just create something that was a response to the moment, which is really interesting for theater because as much as I love theater, I think rarely has the capacity to respond to a moment immediately. The way development processes work, plays that are written today might not see the stage for another 3 years.
Audiences need the chance to process what they're going through. We are all right now still in the middle of going through massive trauma. I mean, there's no other way to say it. And I think our job as artists in these moments is to be able to find some way to be a part of the conversation about what we're all going through. And so that was super important to me. How do we do that? How do we tell some kind of story? How do we do it now and not have to wait the normal length of time? Like, how do we not just commission a play that will take 2 years to write, and then 3 years from now we have a play that's done and workshopped about this moment? As I said to everyone, that's going to happen, and there will be some great pieces that come out of it. Let's not worry about making great art. Let's make art. Let's make something. Let's make something that responds to this moment.
And then, we were working under the assumption that we'd be back in the fall, and then that seemed less and less likely. And this is a creative process, and what you're supposed to do is make the most room for creativity. And I can't say that COVID-19 is like the ideal circumstance for creativity.
Immediately, the idea started to become, oh, great, let's have a series that'll be a short series. We will reach out to 10 local DC area playwrights, make it a 10-episode thing where they each write one thing. They each have the opportunity they can write whatever they want as long as they follow what the person before them has said. And we'll make Maboud and Craig as our 2 resident actors, the leads of the show, and also 2 actors that were in shows that we were getting ready, either in rehearsal for or getting ready to do, the leads of this. Beyond that, we have no idea what's going to happen or how we're going to do it. It seemed like a super simple idea at first. Like, yeah, great. We know how to make work. We can write stories really well. We've got a whole team dedicated to that. I didn't know the first thing about filmmaking. I just thought, I've made some film-like things for the theater. Should be pretty simple. It was not.
So when Ryan first reached out to me about Homebound, I was thrilled. I didn't really know what to expect.
Well, I think when Ryan called, he said, "Hey, we're going to do this little project. It's called Homebound. I mean, it's going to be this thing. I mean, it's going to be fine. We're just we need somebody to come in and just help us kind of like think about the lighting a little bit, but it'd be easy."
I guess I didn't really know what to expect because I haven't really done digital theater before. Digital, virtual, I don't know, video theater, Zoom theater. What is it?
Well, what I took from it was that it was going to be like an interview series with you and between Maboud and Craig, and didn't quite grasp the whole scope of the thing, that it was going to be an honest to God web series.
Once we actually got into it, this is a whole different deal. Like, this isn't. And I think we all learned that in the process too. And I'm not throwing Ryan under the bus. I think we were all a little bit naive at the beginning of what exactly we were doing on this project and how it's going to evolve. But I think we started to learn fairly quickly out the gate that, okay, well, this is a bit more involved than perhaps one might have imagined.
It still really didn't hit me until Jared Mazzacci and I started working on the title sequence that this was going to be a show, a web series dramatic show. And so then I was even more elated when I made that discovery.
I was like, I'm an actor, so I was like, okay, just point me and just tell me where to stand and what to learn, and I'll do it. Little did I know what it would entail. So initially I thought, wow, an opportunity to create, and it's great for the theater, and we keep theater in the minds of people through this project. And I thought, yeah, I'm an actor. I can stand in front of a screen and talk. But it was so much more than that.
Honestly, I think it was one of the best things that we did here as a way to engage local artists. Roundhouse, it's a combination of DMV artists and people from out of town, and Homebound was a complete commitment to people who are here.
I guess I thought, there were a couple of things that I laid out at the beginning for everybody, for all the artists in that very first conversation that we had. And part of it was, we have 2 men of color as the leads in this show. We have a majority cast of color simply because of who we had cast for the 3 shows that remained. We're just assigning people. We're literally just saying, this week is going to be these 2 people in a scene, and you're going to write it. I said to all of the writers, you're going through the same thing that we're all going through. So write what is important for you. If in that moment you need comedy, write comedy, because other people are going to need comedy as well. If you can't deal with it and you need to vent about how difficult it is, use it as a way to do that. As we got into the first episode of it, and we started, we got the first script back from Alexandra, and she gave us 2 scripts, and they were both full-out comedies.
I'm sorry, let's return to the potato question. You are a potato now?
Yes.
How do I stop being a potato?
In what scenario are you a potato?
When those first couple of episodes came back, I thought, oh, okay, this is going to be fun. This is going to be like a chance for us to make fun of all the things that we are making fun of individually. But I had also said to everybody, I want you to recognize that this is a cast of color. This is a the writing team is half writers of color. And this virus, at this point, one of the things that we know about it is adversely affecting communities of color. Just keep that in mind as you write.
Each week a writer had new material and new actors and new voices. And honestly, I think it was one of the best things that we did here as a way to engage local artists. We do 5 to 6 plays a season, and Homebound we had 10 writers. When do you get to have 10 new playwrights create something for you and be able to put their work up that quickly. So on some level, like creatively, it allowed us to do something that we actually can't do if we were still in the building, which was, that part of it was really exciting.
So I was excited about the project because it felt like even early a way to keep working. And initially, I realized really quickly, it's just a way to see people's faces every week. And my involvement, in a way, I felt, this is, just the way I think perhaps, but how nice that they're including me, like why does anyone need a costume designer right now in the world?
So that was, we started this project late April. And that was right about at the end of that period where, I was grateful for the break and starting to be concerned about, money and about not working and about not being creative. And so it was a very, very welcome relief to be able to, even though it wasn't in person, to be able to work with friends, colleagues.
I felt like, I felt like considered or seen in that moment. When you're a little at sea and you've sort of been cut loose from a lot of different things, you're like, oh, great, I'll be involved. And knowing like, okay, you're going to help out and be contributing and be part of this. And I liked the scope of it, that it would be a different playwright every time, but some of the characters continuing.
It was a gift. It was a challenging gift, but it was a gift because, working from episode to episode, each one builds on the previous one. Each one has its own playwright, screenwriter, with their own, sense of place and time and emotion, which means that each script had very, even though they were all strung together, even though they were all built on the previous episodes, each one had very specific, different vibes and energy and emotion.
Whoa. I thought I told you it's a COVID rules barbecue this year.
I'm not here for the barbecue, Craig.
Well, I can't chat. I got the grill going. You should have called.
I thought I'd convince you better in person.
Convince me? Uh-oh. What's up?
I found it really fascinating to work with a different playwright every week. Even though, our touch-based meeting, the playwright was maybe there, maybe not there, but to get this new script and to see a different angle or side of a prism on these characters, I guess, was really fascinating to me. And how quickly some really incredible language could be created and turned around and absorbed and produced.
And even that was its own amazing thing for me, challenging for sure, but also amazing to sort of be able to read into a script and keep these through lines that I had been building with my work and add a little bit of variation to each one to match the feel of the new episode. Yeah, it was, it's like a big puzzle, and I just love doing that kind of stuff.
To me, the attraction actually became, how do you figure out how to light someone's kitchen or apartment or whatever it might be with next to no equipment, with little. I have a great background in theater, but I don't have any background in doing lighting for film or TV. So I had to kind of rethink that, like you're lighting for the camera, not for an audience. So, okay, there's different. But the big thing was you can't use your hands. You can only talk through this two-dimensional piece of plastic hooked up to some electrons, and then hope that the way you communicate gets across to the person on the other end who has the hands and things, can move things around, and can take what you're saying and turn it into, realize what you're saying and make it work.
Oh, well, certainly, the technical I mean, I was asked to do things that I had never done before. And what started as a challenge became fun. It would be interesting if you had spoken to some other of the cast members. I mean, we were in a lot of the episodes, so we got to learn as we went. You know, if I had just done one, I mean, I might have been pulling my hair out because of the demands of what we were trying to do. Certainly, as you guys on the production end were learning, we got more sophisticated. I think our first one was on Zoom, and we went from that to, you know, much more sophisticated setups. So certainly the technical element was great. I learned a lot. I learned a new way of acting because, you know, it's an hour and a half to set up the shot, and then we got to shoot it.
We're a theater, and we decided we would make, what are they? Web series. I don't call them movies. They're not movies because I'm still a theater artist. I don't know anything about making movies, you know, but we overnight were like, well, we don't really have film equipment, but we'll learn how to do this. And overnight actors started using all their phones and their computers to film things.
For starters, just being so impressed at, you know, all of us, all the people behind the project, from Ryan to the staff at Roundhouse to the cast, being able to pull all of this together and then having the cast, for the most part, be their own cameramen, their own audio people. So on the one hand, those things are just very impressive to me. And every episode, I was like, wow, it's amazing that we got this, given where we are and, you know, what our limitations are.
I felt like the cast, everybody was so open, like literally bringing their phone or their laptop into their closet. That's very personal, you know, like how you organize your clothes, how you set things up. And here you are showing to someone who really thinks a lot about that stuff. And some shows with a lot of costume changes, I may actually just shop a closet for that character, and essentially between the actor and I figure out what outfit on any given day and leave some things off the table and bring some new things in, and that way they have a closet sort of to pull from, and we can adjust during tech. So it's really interesting to actually have that moment in an actor's closet with them pulling out clothes and to give them a moment to say, I was thinking about this shirt because it makes me feel like this when I wear it, or because it's 100 degrees in here and I don't want to die during the filming, or for whatever reason. I really appreciated that openness, and I'm glad I could be there with them, because I think when you're filming yourself at home, you're already taking on more roles than performer. And if you're also your own costume designer, I mean, at least let's sort of take that off the table. I mean, still kind of are, but at least you have a buddy.
I put my trust in Ryan's vision and the people that were involved, and I thought, okay, I get to work with these writers, and we're going to create new scripts, and you know, it's going to all unfold about being homebound. You know, how to live during the pandemic, and you know, like I said, I'm a sort of a dumb actor, so I put my trust in the visionaries, and then I stand where I'm supposed to stand and do what I'm supposed to do.
There was no way to know what we were about to walk into, you know, what was going to happen in the world. I mean, I think, you know, we've all joked that like we thought it was going to be something about like making sourdough bread and playing cards, and it just wasn't. It just was not that.
You know, and looking back, you're like, if only that had been our COVID-19 experience, you know, potato filters and sourdough starters, you know, and like working in your pajamas. But that's not what the universe gave us.
Have you seen the footage?
Maboud Ebrahimzadeh? No. China sent me the clip. I didn't even watch it. News about the virus is doom gloomy enough. I don't want to grapple with that visual. Did you see it?
Yes. The man was just going for a jog.
Yeah, I mean, the whole world, certainly more than America, but the whole world fell apart. So not only were we doing how to live during the pandemic, but then how to live with this racial unrest and economic unrest and all of that stuff. So it became much more about us just doing this little project. We were sort of chronicling, you know, a 10-week period, or it was longer than 10 weeks, but we were sort of chronicling a period in our country. And we have that. That's on film.
It was important for us to stay current and to write about whatever we were going through. And as a result, I think, you know, having just gone back and watched the supercut all the way through months after finishing it, I can look at it and go, this is such an amazing time capsule for this insane, unprecedented period of time that we've all lived through. You know, in a way, I think it's going to be hard to explain what this was really like to people who are born after this, or who are little kids and don't understand it now. And Homebound's a really good way to be able to give people a sense of like what happened, because you see it shift over the course of the show. You see all of it shift in a big way to really dealing with the racial reckoning that was happening in our, you know, both pandemics, both the actual pandemic and the racial reckoning that was happening in the country at the same time. And I think it became a much more interesting series as a result of that.
You know, seeing these things, the pushes for social justice, seeing these things reflected in our episodes was really amazing. You know, it just sort of filled me with gratitude for being able to work on this project and for being able to work on this project that was, you know, reflecting in real time the things that are going on in the world between the pandemic and everything else and the protests.
That the nimbleness in that moment to pivot depending on what was happening. Because in every week there was, you know, between Ahmaud Arbery or George Floyd, between every week there was something else happening, another murder happening. And to respond to that felt important. And I'm so glad. I feel like had we not, and it was just about, you know, lack of toilet paper, I would have sort of been like, okay with it, but a little sad. And so I felt that the playwrights and the directors and the cast really pushed for that and made that happen and made it a priority.
I think it just became more critical to make sure we got it right for whatever it is that we were trying to get on camera, whatever the performance that we were trying to get from the actors, to make sure we had it right, as far as, you know, making sure that the light does what it needs to do to help them tell their story.
Well, you know, the sadness and the rage and the disappointment that I felt about all of those things, you know, I didn't carry into the shooting, the filming, because we had a job to do. You know, but certainly the resonance of it is in what we presented. But like you said, I mean, this stuff for some of us is not new. What was so interesting about it, the aftermath, was that despite the fact that we were supposed to stay in, keep covered, not be next to each other, people came out and people protested, and that was really that response is something that hadn't happened in the past.
And even then, it was still past tense. You know, my husband wrote the episode 6. Was it Sometimes It Snows? He's going to get mad at me for not remembering this title. Sometimes It Snows in April. I was about to say Snows in Minneapolis, and I was like, that is not the title. And when he started thinking about it, it was partially he knew Craig has a deep love of Prince, as do many people, but Craig's love of Prince is deep, exceptional. And we had lived in Minneapolis for a while, and it was a city we really loved.
You know, I hold that place as a sacred temple in my heart because they gifted us the purple one. But don't move to Minneapolis.
Why not?
You hate the cold.
And when Tim wrote that episode, George Floyd was alive, so, and by the time it aired, he was dead, and so even as we thought we were doing something so immediate, we were still always just a little behind the time, but still had a way to write towards a moment and be able to be in conversation about those moments. And that, I think for the country, it was a turning point, but it was so interesting when we were watching the editing, and it was, I think, a Friday night, Saturday morning, and the protests had started, and all of a sudden it was like, we knew why we had written about that city, and that city on a national level and perhaps an international level had a completely different meaning in that moment. And so even though it was originally this homage, that wasn't, the world that it entered was not in a moment where people wanted to hear about how lovely Minneapolis was. It was a moment where people were like, what on earth is happening in that city? Why is there so much ongoing police brutality? How could you do, it was, and we had to also respond to that as well. So again, you think you start with potato filters and sourdough starters, and you end up with a slice of history.
Things were happening. A lot of things were, wow, this is, have you lived something like this?
I think the hardest part about it, the unexpectedly really difficult part of this, was that we were all living with and grappling with in our own ways what was happening, while also trying to make a piece of art that grappled and dealt with it.
I always care about the performers. It's very important to me that, but in this moment, when we're also reeling from what's happening and then rehearsing and performing, it felt even more important that even through a laptop or whatever, that I was part of caring for the people who are telling these stories. Normally when we do a play, we have a little distant. It was written in 2014 or 2016, and it was about that thing and about this issue, and to respond to something that just happened last week, and that maybe you're still reeling over and processing internally, and then to do a sort of mini play about it is, I think, really powerful and important, and also potentially harmful in that case. And I think it was approached with all, care and integrity, but it does make you invest in that because you want that to be as safe a space as it can possibly be for the people involved, and you want them to be able to do it.
So the convergence of what we were dealing with personally, emotionally, while also trying to have distance from it to tell a story, and simultaneously being beyond exhausted. The combination of those things, I think, became really intense.
And there's a little bit of an evolution in the music. At the beginning, it starts, not somber quite, and not as a comedy, but there's a little more lightness to it, especially in that first episode when Craig's a potato.
What does it say?
But as time went on, and more things started to happen in the world, and those things started to be reflected in the scripts.
You take care of yourself, Craig.
Thank you, Helen.
Then the music actually started to shift a little bit for me. The music started to get a little darker and a little heavier, and a little more uplifting at times when the script and the action called for it. It became less playful and more responding to the words and the world.
I do feel as we got further into the episodes, I mean, episode 1, episode 2, and then once we got into like kind of the heart of it, I feel like we kind of had like our own language of how we were like doing things. We kind of had figured a lot of things out, which I think kind of responds to the idea of the stakes being elevated, just because we knew kind of the work that we already created and how we could push a little bit further with it. So in terms of like scenes that stand out, I don't know if any particular one scene stands out, but I would say that I think the scenes working with Craig, I think were always, and of course with you, Maboud, were always had something special in it, because partly because we were in the room most of the time with the two of you.
I don't know if it was because it was the first episode, but the potato, I mean...
Oh. This isn't funny, Maboud.
You're Sputnik.
Maboud?
Just turn it off.
Seeing Craig as a potato, I think, was one of the highlights. And then seeing Maboud as a potato.
Okay, now I am a potato.
I think was one of the highlights for me on this, and how that, sort of we didn't get to see him as a potato again, I don't think, but he referred to it several times, and it always made me chuckle because it reminded me of seeing Craig as a potato.
Even that episode, We Wear the Mask, with Craig and Chinna and Farrah Lowell Harris as the playwright, just felt like it spoke to so much in that moment. I think that episode in particular is sort of etched in my mind, of Craig wearing this mask, sitting on his front porch, wondering if his neighbors will accept him, and saying, fuck it, like, I am who I am.
Hey, Uncle Craig.
Child, please. The last time I clicked on something from you, I turned into a potato.
Why are you bringing up old stuff?
Old stuff? It was 2 weeks ago, Chinna. Do you know how unprofessional I would have looked trying to run a meeting as a spud?
I don't see the problem. You still would have had brown skin and a chip on your shoulder, so...
Ha 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 ha. Glad I could be the butt of your joke.
I'm just playing, Unc.
I love that episode, one, because I got to work with Chinna Palmer, who's a former student of mine. But the other thing is that episode really set the foundation for the Craig Marshall character. It sort of established who he was, and then every writer after that sort of built on that. So really, she set the trajectory of who that guy was. Yeah. I think it's great that Craig Marshall, like I said, it's a generational thing. That because Craig Marshall, like Craig Wallace, has protested before. Has been at the march, the '83 march, has done all these things. And my niece, played by Chinna Palmer, I'm looking at her and I'm thinking, wow, she's the future. She's out there doing her thing for her generation. But I like that Craig Marshall said, I have to do something. And he did it.
A lot of really great moments. I think one of my favorite episodes to work on was the one where Maboud was trying to call the unemployment, where Maboud was trying to call unemployment. And so I got to make our own, robo voice recording of it that gets played over and over and over again. And the first time we hear it, it's just up front and present, so we can place it. And then, the next time we hear it, Maboud's in his living room, and the phone's on the table, so we hear it coming out of, his phone, like it's on speakerphone, and then he's listening to it on headphones. And so it was fun getting to manipulate it like that. And, it's a very tedious thing to go through, as many of us know now, to try and call unemployment. So it was nice to be able to show that, but also add a little levity to it.
They all have a special place in my heart, but the two that I really am drawn to is the episode you did with Lynette, The Date, I think it's called. Danny Stoller wrote that one. so much of Homebound was heavy because that's where we were. So to see your episode where you guys were, there was light and fun and maybe even the promise of love in the time of a pandemic, I mean, it was great because we hadn't done anything like that before.
Hey! You ready? Coming at ya.
Oh! Yep. Oh, yes!
Shot.
It was delightful because, I wasn't a part of that episode, so I didn't know, I hadn't read it. I wasn't part of the shooting of it. So then when I saw it, it was just smiles. I was like, oh my God, this is so great.
And when the writers started responding to what was happening in the world via Homebound, through you and Craig and the other artists, to watch it now, you are reminded of this long arc of history, this long arc of continued injustice on the part of the police force here in this country, and also this continued demand to live our lives and find joy. In the middle of all of that, Danny wrote us an episode about a first date that was fantastic because actually, and I've been talking to friends, like friends are going on dates, like we find a way to live and have joy, and we have to find a way to acknowledge all that is painful and wrong. And that is what art, creative work, writers, actors, performers do, is that they channel, they are conduits. I say they, maybe I should say we. I feel like I still don't understand how Homebound happened, even though I worked on it, I'll be honest. I'm just like, I sat at my computer, logged into Zoom every day for 6 hours, still not sure how Homebound happened. Just credit to all of you. But yeah, that's the thing, that because otherwise we would just, especially now, I would just live in grief and despair.
There were a few episodes where we shot at Craig's. The first one was early on. It was episode 3, and Craig had this weird thing where he couldn't get internet access the second he stepped out of his door. Like, it was like he was inside and everything was good, and he would walk outside the door to the front porch where we needed to shoot the scene, and it would stop. And so you and I made the decision. We were just like, screw it. We have no choice. We're going to have to get over. So we put on all the PPE and we went over there and we shot it. And then, a little bit later, when it was now where people were starting to actually leave their homes and stuff, we went over there and we shot the scenes of him jogging. And then the last episode where we really got to be in the backyard shooting, those were the moments, I think, actually, particularly that last episode.
Whoa. I thought I told you it's a COVID rules barbecue this year.
I'm not here for the barbecue, Craig.
Well, I can't chat. I got the grill going. You should have called.
I thought I'd convince you better in person.
Convince me? Uh-oh.
Because it was the last episode, we were making barbecue in the show, so I brought over some barbecue, and Kim, Craig's wife, made some amazing stuff, and we had a break where we sat and ate. And it should not be that big of a thing, but just being able to have some of Harold's brisket that he had made that we had talked about a lot but not actually tasted, and just being able to be in the same space with people. I remember turning to you so many times going, oh my God, this is so much easier when we're here and we can shoot it. Is this what making a movie's really like? This is so much easier. It's fun. That was when I was like, God, yes, I miss being with people. I miss being with my friends making art. It's just not the same thing. And so, yeah, I think being able to be in everyone's presence and to have those couple of moments where we were reminded what it's like to actually be present with each other. Those were the moments that made me really miss theater, for sure. And made me also recognize how drastically different it is what we're doing. I think to some extent we were just so moving as fast as we can to get it done that having those moments where we could stop and be together and go, holy crap, we made it through this thing. And also, look at this cool gimbal thing that I'm using right now, and I love this. Look at these toys, like all of that became very fun all at once.
That web series reached more people and became accessible to people who've never come into this building and live too far away to ever come into this building. And yet they've watched Homebound and reached out to people on staff and to myself and said, I've watched every episode. I really enjoyed it. I really love these actors who are, if I ever end up in DC, I'll come. And that's just not something that happened before, And so there was a new kind of accessibility that happened by putting things on the internet and saying, you can watch this whenever you want. It doesn't matter where you are. You can still see this. Welcome. And that to me has been probably one of the silver linings of this, is seeing that the art making, is not limited to a building. It's not. It can find itself in other ways. I think it's an interesting question for theater because the difference between film and TV and theater is that there is a live embodied experience. And I think that was the hard part about Homebound, is that it was theater makers creating things for a new medium, which is not the same as the live event of being in a room with other humans. But the moment we're in right now says that that's not the safe thing to do. So, we have imagination and creativity in excess. That's our job. So we find other ways to use it.
One of the reasons that I sort of backed away from doing so much film and TV is that I've really missed the collaboration that we have in theater, that back and forth, that's just always present. Whether it's between me and the director, between me and the designers, between me and the cast, there's just always this consistent, continuous collaboration that I really miss, that I really didn't get much of in film and TV. And so working on Homebound was really kind of an amazing mix of both worlds, because it's still video, it's still film and TV, things are set. But also everyone working on the project is a theater person. And so there was quite a bit more collaboration than you would normally see in film and TV.
Once it was all put together, then I was amazed that it all came together. Not because I'm amazed, but just when all the elements go into building it, and then you see what the potential of it is, it's a victory. And it makes us want to go back into the next one. And those that I weren't a part of, I couldn't wait to see what you guys did. And then I'd watch that and I go, okay, great. So they did that. So now what is the next thing going to be? Yeah. So there was an excitement in that regard, right? We did the first one. Whew. Now we do a second one. Okay. Now we're doing a third one. Wow. Fourth, fifth. So it's building like, what's next? What's next? How's it going to end? Should we keep going? It's just, I've said this to you off camera that once we finished it, we felt like, now we can do it.
Now we can make it, right. Now we know what's happening.
Mm-hmm. But in the process, the complicated process of building the set and doing the costumes and having the production meetings and rehearsing, there's all that time for all those lenses to come on and the complications, which is wonderful. The complexity of it is a joy and exciting. And maybe sometimes complexity gets towards truth and collaboration gets towards truth in a way that one person making a thing might not. I don't know. I wonder at other moments, crazy, pivotal, critical, disastrous moments in history. You think about the art that's created then. What is the timeline of it? How does that change things? I don't know. And so to go through that is interesting and exciting and also heartbreaking and maddening and frustrating and beautiful and ugly all at the same time, I guess.
There is a loss. There is a loss. And even in the middle of that loss, people are trying to find one another and support one another. And that was really reflected, I think, in the episodes that we created for Homebound.
So I think just that sense of us all being in it together is the one thing that has kept me going, is that there is a definitive need for art in the world, more maybe than at any other time in history. When we are going through trauma like this, as a whole, it is not just your neighbors and your family and your friends that you want to talk to. Seeing a story and watching yourself live through the story that you're watching helps process what you're going through. And I can't wait to get people back in a room together so that we can do that together.